One of the most anticipated events of Jill Biden's surprise diplomatic visit to Ukraine was her meeting with Olena Zelenska, the First Lady of Ukraine, who has not been seen in public since Russia launched its invasion of Ukraine on February 24. The two First Ladies had a private meeting at the White House on July 19, followed by an expanded bilateral meeting with other U.S. officials. They discussed the United States' continued support for the government of Ukraine and its people as they defend their democracy and cope with the significant human impacts of Russia's war, which will be felt for years to come. Jill Biden and Olena Zelenska had previously met in person in May, when Biden made a stealth trip to Ukraine. It was the first time Zelenska emerged from hiding since the start of the Russian invasion. During their one-hour closed meeting, Zelenska shared with Biden her concerns for the emotional health of Ukrainian children. She also asked Biden to talk about mental health issues in the U.S. Biden said she came back and talked to her team about how to help with mental health for the mothers and the children who have suffered such tragedy and the atrocities. She said each of the agencies in the room would tell Zelenska what they had specifically been working on to address her concerns. Some of the U.S. officials who participated in the bilateral meeting were Second Gentleman Douglas Emhoff, U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Linda Thomas-Greenfield, Deputy Administrator of the U.S. Agency for International Development Isabel Coleman, Under Secretary of State for Political Affairs Toria Nuland and U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy. The First Ladies also discussed how the United States can continue to alleviate suffering through support and humanitarian assistance to the Ukrainian people, and the need to hold accountable those responsible for war crimes and other atrocities. The U.S. has provided more than $400 million in security assistance and more than $2 billion in humanitarian aid to Ukraine since 2014. Zelenska thanked Biden for her visit and her support. She said she was grateful for the friendship between their countries and their families. She also said she hoped that one day they could meet again in a peaceful Ukraine. The meeting between Jill Biden and Olena Zelenska was a powerful symbol of solidarity and empathy between two women who have witnessed the horrors of war and its effects on their loved ones and their nations. It was also a message of hope and resilience for the Ukrainian people who are fighting for their freedom and dignity against Russian aggression. The war between Ukraine and Russia has been raging for 10 weeks now, since Russian troops invaded Ukraine's eastern regions on February 1, 2023. The conflict has its roots in the 2014 annexation of Crimea by Russia and the subsequent support for separatist rebels in Donbass by Moscow. Despite several attempts to broker a peace deal, the war has only escalated over the years, with both sides accusing each other of violating ceasefires and human rights. The current invasion by Russia was triggered by a series of events that heightened tensions between the two countries. In late 2022, Ukraine announced its intention to join NATO, a move that Russia strongly opposed and saw as a threat to its security and interests. In response, Russia amassed tens of thousands of troops along the border with Ukraine, conducting military exercises and provocations. Ukraine also accused Russia of orchestrating cyber attacks and sabotage operations against its infrastructure and institutions. On January 31, 2023, a massive explosion rocked the city of Luhansk, which is controlled by Russian-backed separatists. The blast killed dozens of people and injured hundreds more. Ukraine blamed Russia for the attack, saying it was a missile strike from a Russian warship in the Black Sea. Russia denied any involvement and accused Ukraine of staging a false flag operation to justify a military offensive. The next day, Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, sending tanks, artillery, drones and troops across the border. The attack caught Ukraine and its allies by surprise, as they were expecting a diplomatic solution to the crisis. The initial assault focused on capturing key cities and strategic points in Donbass, such as Donetsk, Mariupol and Debaltseve. The Ukrainian army put up a fierce resistance, but was outnumbered and outgunned by the Russian forces. The war quickly spread to other parts of Ukraine, as Russia targeted its infrastructure, energy and communication networks. Several cities were hit by airstrikes, missiles and artillery fire, causing widespread damage and casualties. Among them were Kyiv, Odessa, Kharkiv and Dnipro. The Ukrainian government declared martial law and mobilized its reserves and volunteers to defend the country. It also appealed to the international community for help and support. The war has drawn global attention and condemnation, especially from the West. The United States, the European Union, NATO, and other countries have expressed their solidarity with Ukraine and denounced Russia's aggression. They have also imposed sanctions on Russia and provided military aid and assistance to Ukraine. However, they have stopped short of sending troops or engaging directly in the conflict. On the other hand, China has tried to position itself as a peace broker in the war between Ukraine and Russia. It has offered to mediate between the two sides and hold talks with all parties involved. China has also sent special representatives to Ukraine, Russia, and several European countries to discuss a political settlement of the crisis. However, China's neutrality and credibility have been questioned by some analysts, who point out that China has been closer to Russia than to Ukraine in the past and shares an anti-Western stance with Moscow. The war has taken a heavy toll on both countries and their people. According to the United Nations, more than 8,800 civilians have been killed and over 20,000 wounded since the start of the invasion. More than 1 million people have been displaced from their homes and are living in camps or shelters. The humanitarian situation is dire, as many areas lack food, water, medicine, and electricity. The economic impact is also severe, as both countries face inflation, recession, and debt. The prospects for peace are dim at this point, as neither side seems willing to compromise or negotiate. Both sides still believe they can win the war or at least inflict enough damage on their enemy to force them to back down. The war has become a matter of national pride and survival for both countries. However, some experts warn that the war could escalate further and involve other actors or regions, such as NATO, Turkey, or Belarus. They urge both sides to seek a diplomatic solution before it is too late.